I'm recording it now. Well, what would you like to do? You want to tell me a little bit about yourself, or what? The time is yours.
Okay. Where to start? I guess I live in Chicago, in the
Okay.
Chicagoland suburbs.
Okay.
I actually live like 10 minutes down the street from Willow Creek, if that's
Oh, really? Yeah.
yeah, so if that's any context.
I've been to Willow Creek a number of times.
hmm I grew up I grew up in church. Ever since I was a kid, I grew up in a small church, Korean church. Um, do you have any experience with the Korean church at
I
all?
do. I've got quite a bit of experience with the Korean church.
Oh wow, so like what's your
Well,
experience with it?
so in the Christian Reformed Church, about 10% of the Christian Reformed Church is Korean.
Mm-hmm.
And so in seminary, I had a number of Korean classmates.
Mm-hmm.
I am a synodical deputy, which means that I travel around and attend a number of Korean classes, which are clusters of Korean churches. Most of those
Mm-hmm.
meetings are done in Korean, though, because they're Korean language classes. We have 2 of them in
Mm-hmm.
California. We have about 7 Korean churches in our classes. That's an English language classes. So I've got a fair amount of experience with Koreans and Korean church. I would by no means call myself an expert, and I don't speak
Mm-hmm.
Korean. My daughter, I watch Korean K-dramas with my daughters sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm actually quite fascinated by Korean culture. So I
Oh,
I do
okay.
I do have a fair amount of experience with Korean church in America.
Okay. Um, so I guess for now I'll go through just what it was like growing up in that particular church, and then
Okay.
like
Was it a
my
Presbyterian or a Pentecostal church?
it was a Presbyterian, but
Okay.
I don't really know what that entails or what it really means.
Okay.
I haven't done much research at all really into the denominational system,
Okay.
mostly because I don't really like how it is now,
Okay.
because like it's useful in terms of like it telling of like description, right? It tells you what you believe rather succinctly,
Yeah.
but practically it's being used, I feel, in terms of battle lines, right?
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
I feel like more than anything it fuels tribalism, like even
Yeah.
further within like society and then like in Christian society. So
Well,
I
Korean churches are known for bitter wars. I see
oh
it all the
man,
time.
it's so funny. Yeah, I mean,
Koreans know all about hierarchies.
oh yikes. Yeah, you have no idea. It's so I mean, okay, so let me maybe like a little history would be good.
Uh-huh.
Just again, this is just like upon like the knowledge that I've got, so I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but
Uh-huh.
oh boy, where to even begin, right? Like Korea has a history of being basically stepped on by all the other countries around it.
Yeah.
Um, they've paid tribute to what China, Japan, multiple times. Like it's like hard to even say when they like develop their own identity as a country rather than as a tributary.
Yeah.
But but I guess like the Christian story starts at around like after the Korean War is roughly because like by then like Korea was basically like a third world country, right? Like
Yeah.
one of like the classical Korean foods, for example, nowadays is called budae-jjigae, and that's literally they made it out of the leftovers and trash of the American Marines and like the army people.
Wow.
So like that's like an idea of how bad it was back then.
Mm-hmm.
It was really bad, and obviously in like well I don't know obviously, but like from what I know, right, Christianity and other religions or Christianity in like specifically I think propagates in like lower income countries and places just because of like the nature of the religion. I feel really like connects with people who are down on their luck per se.
Yep. Yep.
So then that happens, and then Korea. I feel like it was very very strong in Korea, like abnormally so, because some of the stories I've heard is that at one point Korea was sending out the most missionaries like in the entire from every single country known in the world.
The 20th century Korean revival is phenomenal.
Right.
The growth and the fervor of the church in Korea. Well,
Hmm.
Korean culture is very intense. I mean, you can't
Yes.
watch K dramas as an American and not realize how intense that culture is.
All right.
But I mean, the Korean, I have yet to read a good book on the spread of Christianity in Korea, but I've heard stories, and it's impressive. And you're exactly right. Korea has been a major sender of missionaries all over the world, and the
Hmm.
Korean pastors I know are very much that way. One of my good friends, who's a Korean pastor in the Bay Area, he was a missionary in Saudi Arabia for years. Very serious Christian, very devoted. I was just, in fact, on Twitter talking with a woman, a journalist who's Korean, and talked about how when her father is a Korean pastor, and when
Hmm.
he received his call, her mother cried and cried and cried and became a very wonderful pastor's wife. But Korean pastors suffer, and they have status in their churches based on
Yeah.
how much they suffer. And so in an American denomination, we watch that dynamic a lot. And we try to say to the Korean
Right.
churches, you should really give your pastor like health benefits and vacation and day
Right.
off once a week. But the
Yeah.
dynamics it's intense. So
And
no, you're
my
exactly
my
right.
my pastor, so like, it's kind of interesting because I don't have much experience with Korean, like classical Korean churches in Korea.
Hmm.
So obviously I grew up in America. So I grew up in like an American Korean church, and that's the kind of community and culture that I grew up with. So
With mostly immigrants in
right,
that church.
exactly. That's
Okay.
that's the
Okay.
thing,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep.
So then because everybody, so for one, I just want to shout out my pastor. He's such an OG. Like he's been to North Korea a bunch of times. He's
Yeah.
been like, oh, he's basically been all around the world, and he's been our pastor for like I think multiple decades now. And like, man, he's 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 a tough old man. But yeah, it's interesting because it's I don't know how it is in other churches again, but in the Korean cult in the Korean American churches, their majority are immigrants, right?
Yep.
So then there's this dichotomy between the people who burn here, right? So the first gen, and then like the zeroth gen, so the immigrants themselves.
Yep.
And then another aspect of the Korean church is that um, like as an immigrant, right? Like you don't speak the language, you're not accustomed to the culture, right? And you go out into the world and you have to do your business, right? Because you live here, and it's almost like you're not even a person, right? Like because I feel like the key point of being human, right, is expressing yourself, and you can't express yourself if you don't know the language, right? If you don't have anybody to express to. So there's that whole idea of identity, right? And the church, because it was so like, I don't know how like religious like certain people might be, but the church became a place where you can become human again, in a sense, right?
Right.
It was where the people go to communicate, express themselves, be themselves, right? They can talk among their peers, they can become a person again. So I feel like that's why, like, another reason why the Korean church is so prevalent is because like the Korean people don't have anywhere else to go, right?
Right.
At least from
Same
like the
thing happened with Dutch immigration. Same
mm,
thing happens with many immigrant groups. People who
mm,
didn't necessarily go to church in their country of origin, when they
right.
came to their new country, they start
Hmm.
going to church because that's where their people are.
Hmm. Yeah. So then, like, obviously, because of that, right? You're gonna like human nature is gonna come out like most, and I feel like even more strongly there more than anywhere else, right?
Yeah.
Just because it's all like pent up. So
Yep.
you got your um, the usual garbage that happens. Human beings being human beings, greed. Like there's like an elder system, right? That like the churches use, but like that becomes like more of a power play than an actual responsibility to the church, like
Yep.
pastors leaving, going, splits,
Yep.
money issues because
Yep.
people are greedy. Like imagine
Yep.
stealing from like the till of the church, right? Like,
Yep. It happens.
yeah, so like that's stuff that happens. And then like the culture itself, which right, like comes from Korea, is like very hierarchical, very top down, right?
Yep.
So and like everything's behind closed doors, right? You never insult somebody to their face. It's always back talk, gossip. So like it's poison. It's poison to the church. I
Well,
despise it.
it was so I was doing one project which was between the Christian Reformed Church and Reformed Church of America, and we had some geographical groups, and then we had some ethnic groups, and
Mm-hmm.
we had Hispanics and then also Koreans. And
Mm-hmm.
for this group, they started their project by the facilitators of this group invited all the main Korean pastors to a spa.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
It's in
yeah.
the spa. That's where
Sure.
they,
Okay.
all came to agreement before you
Mm-hmm.
come out publicly and then you
Right,
present to the
right.
community
Yeah.
all of the decisions that are made. And the
Mm-hmm.
community says, yes, we will do that. That's
Right. And that's like a
very
problem.
not, it's not American.
Yeah, it's like a problem I have with the church in general, right? It's the people at the bottom don't get heard by the people at the top, and it's like
Right,
just a problem you find anywhere. It's just,
right.
but like it's like really bad, especially in churches, I feel, because of like the institution that it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So that
yeah,
means like deficiencies in leadership at the top means everything goes awry
yeah,
from top to the bottom, right?
yeah.
Or at least in other, like, for example, like the government, right, has the three like triangular bodies, at least
Right.
holding each other in check. But
Yeah.
yeah, churches don't even have that.
Well, Korean
Um,
churches don't have that.
oh, sorry, yeah.
And
So,
so when Korean churches come into the Christian Reformed Church, the Christian Reformed Church has all of these Dutch and then Americanized traditions, and then it
mhm.
hits the Korean, and like our elders
Yeah,
cycle on and off, and their elders are for life, and
right,
there's
yeah.
all of these issues that I'm
Hmm.
constantly dealing with the Korean churches. So no, I know
Right,
what you're talking about.
yeah, because like, and it all really comes down to like back in the day, right, third world country, and then like it was a very tight grip coming back and becoming again we're fairly right, like fairly up there, and we're like basically a first world country or along those lines,
Yeah,
and you don't get there by like by half terms, right? It was basically I feel like a form of like complete nationalism that was fueled, right? Unity, so like conformism is very like prevalent in Korean culture. You do what you're told, right? And you follow the crowd. So those ideas have permeated even into like church's culture, right? Because what is the church if not people? So all that. And yeah, I mean that's kind of the landscape now. And then you have like the Korean American church here nowadays. There's a split, right, between the first generation and zeroth generation. So then the zeroth generation doesn't want to give the first generation any power or responsibility, right? Because that's not how it works, right?
that's
In
right.
Korean culture, right?
That's right.
The kiddos are, um, they're supposed to be taught and they're supposed to be led the way. Then therefore they don't really give any responsibility towards them, not any real responsibility anyway. So either you get churches that split, right? KMEM or Korean ministry and English ministry. Those are very messy because it's blood. It's basically blood versus blood, right? It's civil war of the most intense kind, right?
Yep.
And then you have churches that just die, right? Because they did not fuel their future, which is the EM, and you're not going to get consistent immigrants in, right? So then, just church is people. Lose to people, you have no church. Mhm.
So what have you done? So you grew up in church, and where are you at now?
Um, so right now, I wouldn't say that I am a Chri- well, okay, first let's define what Christian is, right?
Okay.
Yeah, difficult, right? But
Yeah.
and subjective, but for me, I feel that being a Christian is someone who believes in the Bible, right?
Okay.
And then from that, right, can be derived, oh, if you believe in the Bible, you believe in a God, right? You believe in the God, right?
Right.
And then extrapolate from that, you're like you're gonna try to follow the commandments or you don't, and like that's what makes you a Christian, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not you're a good or bad Christian is like up to debate, but that's Christian in my terms. Um, I started. I grew up in the church, right? And then, but I started like thinking about this stuff, like whether or not God is real. Like I don't know, pretty young, right? I feel like I don't. I feel like that's pretty normal for any church person. It's like
Yep.
you have to start thinking about this kind of
Yep.
philosophical stuff pretty
That's right.
fast.
Yes, you do.
Or, you know, people start asking questions. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
well, I don't know.
Yep.
So I think I took the nihilistic view pretty fast, right? So that's, you know, obviously the postmodern world that we live in. So that's almost a default for everybody. A distinct story that still stays with me, and that's, I have really bad memory, so like remembering anything at all is a pretty big achievement for me. But I remember telling this girl, and just like the person next to me, like I was sitting next to in a discussion, I told her, oh yeah, the purpose of humanity is just to reproduce, and then,
Mm,
you know, and then we die, and then that's it. And it's like that. So like that's like the kind of frame of mind, right? Um, and then I entered high school, right? And this is stuff I've been thinking about recently, especially because of your videos. But I don't, just like a disclaimer here, I don't know if by trying to understand what happened then, I am like inputting a narrative which may or may not exist.
that's
And
a
I
good question.
don't want that, right? Because like the world isn't a narrative, right? It's,
Right.
we see it as a narrative.
Yeah.
It might look like a story, but it's not. That's not how it works. At least in our limited sense, right? And maybe in
It's
God's
not a
eyes.
story
So
we wield. How did you find
right.
my videos?
So recently I was trying to, so I've done all of this like internal like dissection basically.
Uh-huh.
I was set on a quest even when I was young to completely know myself and not lie to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've gone as far as I can so far without getting diminishing returns and whatever I try, right?
Okay.
I feel like I've accomplished that goal 90%. Say I can say I know myself now. Um, Therefore, I decided, oh, okay, I'll just outward now, right? Because I'm a mirror from which society is, right? I can see society through me,
Okay.
and then and by doing that, I know more about myself, right?
Okay.
So then now I am looking into other people, right? And then they
Yep.
are going to be their own reflections of society, so I can understand that better, and etc.
Yep.
So I reached out to this SoundCloud rapper that I listened to, right? And I hit him up and I said, hey, so I saw you've had conversations with like other Christians, and you know, let's have a talk. And it was very, very useful. His name's Mr. Master on SoundCloud.
Okay.
But it was a very, very useful talk actually, because it just allowed me to parse out, like, because he's a non-Christian, right?
Yeah.
So it allowed me to parse out a lot of the ideas that I had taken for granted. Really, like if you talk with other Christians, the foundational stuff you never go over because it's kind of implied. So it was very useful for that. And then he led me to, or he told me about this YouTube channel called Rebel Wisdom, right? I was like, oh, okay, who's Jordan Peterson? Man, a lot of the videos are about this Jordan Peterson guy. Oh, who's this? A pastor? Oh, wow, okay. Like, oh, I can. This is a better starting point for me, right? Because I don't know who this Jordan Peterson man is. So then from there, I
Okay.
watched the Rebel Wisdom video, and then I went to your channel, obviously, and then that's how I found you. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good enough. Fair enough. That's cool. I like it.
Uh,
So I really love your story. I love how I love, keep going. Keep going. This is fun.
yeah. So then, where was I? In high school, right? So I start thinking about it even more. And again, the narrativization, right? I don't know. All I can say for certain is what I got from it now. I don't know, and I can't say whether or not that's what actually happened, right? And it's strange to say, but like I'm not that person, and it's like all that stuff is.
I get it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
totally understand what you're saying.
All right, okay. So just, you know, that there's that, but
Yep.
I'm pretty sure I went through a major depressive period. Like I
Okay.
was I don't think I like understood it at the time or realized it for what it was, but I was waking up every day thinking disappointed that I woke up, right?
Mm.
And then almost every waking second I would I would say in my head I want to kill myself, right? And then the only reason that I didn't was I was scared to die, right? So then there was the other part of me also calling me a coward for not even being able to
Wow.
take my own life. So that
You're
was
rough
like
on yourself.
I had, well, you know, I wanted to know myself, right?
Yeah.
And I can't shy away from my deficiencies. So
No,
like
that's right.
yeah. So in that sense, I know every every flaw of almost every flaw of myself, and my own ignorance, my arrogance, my pride, or tautology, but you know, that idea, right? So I try to keep like I'm in a constant loop, basically self-checking myself
Yeah.
for both morality, like what I believe is moral, and then logic too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And making sure my ideas are consistent.
Yeah.
So that's just in my head constantly.
You're very Peterson-esque in that. I mean, that's a very
Oh,
Jordan Peterson-like thing.
I'll take your word for it because I don't I don't really
Yeah.
know.
No, it's very
Okay.
like him. He's very much like that. I mean, Jordan Peterson's like narrow, these 12 rules for life. This is the code that I live by. You know, don't lie, and especially don't lie to yourself. And, you know,
Mm,
so your little narrative reminds me a bit about him,
mm, okay.
which again is probably, you know, that's rebel wisdom. I mean, that's all in the same sphere. So
hmm
I'm not surprised.
So then in high school, right, it was all of that, and I believe the center of it all was twofold. Um, the main thing that I still remember is that very I was depressed because I feel because of I realized the shallowness of human relationships,
Hmm.
and the
Yeah.
fact that how like a question I kept asking myself, right, that keep coming up was, what is a friend, right? So like, what does that even mean, right? Like, does that mean I hang out with you a lot, or like, does that mean I know your deepest, darkest secrets, right? Or like, does that mean I spent a lot of time with you, right? And then those questions, and then that like the idea, I realize this now. This is a realization I have now. It's not a thought I had then. It's just like, or I guess later after that period, right? Was like just how difficult, the impossibility, I guess, of truly understanding another person, right? Like I am never like, we don't have the tech yet, obviously. I mean, maybe in the future, but right now, how can I truly say that I understand anyone, right? All I can know is their actions and then what can be derived from those actions, but I'll never know what's inside other people's skulls, right? So then I apply that to like the people I had at church, right? Like the shallowness of human relationships, right? It's like, and the church, like the type of culture we had in the EM, right, was um we are brothers and sisters, right? And I felt that truly. It was like, I feel like I'm probably still here because of like my church, right? Because like the Korean culture, I feel kind of worked in favor for like me, because the people there treated me like, or at least the older, this is the language thing, right? When I say hyung, it means like older brother in Korean,
Right.
but it's like more than that, right?
Right.
Like like the English I feel can't fully translate it, like
Hmm.
because like the connotations behind the word is so rich, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So I'll just say the word, but you can think it in your head as like an older brother that's not like by blood per se.
Right. Right.
So like the Hyungs, right, and then just the older people really showered me with a lot of love, right? I literally owe them thousands of dollars in food and gas. They would pick me up from like 40 minutes away, right, and then drive another 40 back to church, right? And
Yeah.
right, they did a lot for me,
Yeah.
and I felt that love in a variety of ways, right?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and I could like tell them whatever, and it was like a true bonding, right? Like
Yeah.
I felt that. And it's like, it's interesting because the root of our church, or at least the English ministry, was that we didn't have one in the beginning. And this is like a little before my time, a little before my memory too. So take it with a grain of salt. But from what I heard, I'm pretty sure our church started with the pastor's son after coming back from a retreat, grabbing a guitar, gathering all the other kids together, and saying, "Let's make an EM," and then sang a song, and then tried and read the Bible together, and then that's how it started. So like I was like directly below them age wise. So I was like 5, 6 maybe.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they were really like, I heard once after the praise band, right, used to like, it would take an entire Saturday, and they would just play and then pray for like 6 hours.
Yeah.
Like pray for 6 hours, right?
Yeah. Well,
Or
Koreans
like,
do that.
yeah, it's right. We got the tongues down, right, and all
Yeah,
that.
that's right.
So like that's like kind of like a snapshot, right? Like a color of a painting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just to give like the idea across, but that's the kind of environment that I grew up with, right? And then here I was questioning all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then like a trip up I had that I realized now, and like I kind of self-corrected, thanks to the help of the guy I was talking to, the SoundCloud guy. This was actually like a core tenet of my life that was shattered like 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
So I'm really happy that like that I could like see it as flawed and then replace it, right?
Yep.
See it
Yep.
like just the fact that like the loop is working. It was just the first time that it was, confirmed that it worked in some degree. So I was very happy about that, even as it tore down a worldview of mine. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the idea is that human beings are inherently selfish, right? A person cannot act outside of their own desires, cannot be truly selfless.
Hmm.
But then I realized with talking to him that what is it? It's like a bad usage of words, right? By using selfish and then desire, which is the accurate word, by using the two like in the same way, I am basically making both words useless, right? And the more accurate word is desire, which is not what selfish means, right? So then what I would have told you in high school when like, the classic question of or the classic example of selflessness being a mother or father, right, sacrificing themselves for their
Right.
child, right?
Right.
And I would have posited, right? Oh, because the parent is acting upon their own desires, they are selfish, right?
Hmm.
And in like a literal sense, like yes, right? But that's not really accurate, right? It's not a correct usage of the word.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like yeah, the more accurate thing is oh, she's acting or he is acting off of like their desires, right? And that's just inherent of every human being,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not a good word. Like selfish is not the correct word to be using.
Right.
Like here I was, right? Like in the midst of my nihilism, hating everybody, um, and then there I had that was a core tenet that I lived my life by, right? I had a real, yeah, I mean, I just had a lot of hatred for everything and everyone because like
Wow.
I was in high school, right? And like I saw like the education system that I was in. I was like, this is garbage. I like, why are they teaching me the past tests rather than information? Why are they not giving me any context behind any of the information that they're trying to give me, right? Like they teach the Pythagorean theorem, but who's Pythagorean, right? Or I don't even know his name.
Pythagoras. He's an
Right,
interesting
exactly.
guy.
Right, like they don't ever give context behind any of this. It's like the physics, right? Like they never gave any of the weight behind all of the math, like in the science or whatever. Right?
Were you angry? And where did the anger come from?
I was angry. I hated everyone around me, especially at school, because I saw myself as above them for seeing their hypocrisies and flaws and shallowness.
Okay.
So I hated the fact that this was the world that I had to reside in for the next 4 years. And then the fact that, and I was also in school, which I did not like, to put it lightly, right? Because I saw the flaws in that, the fact that I I was helpless, right? So that
You had a real sense of superiority. Where did that come from?
yeah, right. So I feel like it's rooted in like I thought I was smarter than everybody else back then, basically, and
Okay.
that's rooted like ever since I was a kid, right? Like
Yeah.
people, like you know, perhaps it was started in Sunday school, right? When I told the Sunday school teacher the correct, you know, correct Bible character that was appearing, or I remembered the story or whatever, right? I feel like it's just like but then like even beyond that, right? I feel like it's just that's mine,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, I mean, I feel like I could explain it away, but right, or not explain it away, but go to the very roots of it. But I just
Yeah.
come down to it's me, right?
Okay. 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 Fair enough. That's it's like good observation. It's honest.
Yeah. Um. So then, yeah, and then like that attitude obviously was put upon the church, right? And then
Yeah.
because like we went to like yearly retreats, right? And that didn't help at all.
Yeah.
'Cause it was these kids, right? Just going to a retreat and then they
Yeah.
get hyped up and fired up for God, and then
Yeah.
everybody forgets. It's
Yeah.
the same cycle every year.
Yeah.
And so I saw that and I was like, like what? At least remember the sermons. Don't fall asleep. Like they, right? And then like this is useful information too, guys. Like you should be paying attention. And then they're all, just being kids.
Yeah.
So but I took that as like as an offense. Like, oh, here I am. Like I know the right answer, right? And y'all are not doing the right thing. So obviously I am morally superior, right? And then like yeah, so like here was the church, right? Who had the right answers, right?
Yeah.
And what I experienced was, oh, they're human, right?
Yep.
But what I took it as was these people should know better, and they are not acting like they should, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like the usual, like I saw the flaws, but not any of the good stuff, right? Or I ignored whatever like good came from it.
Yep.
And then like the relationships part, like because you're supposed to like open up, or it's like you end up opening up to people in like the retreats or just in the church setting because
Yeah.
they ask and they care and they
Yeah.
pray,
Yeah.
right?
Well, that's part of the deal.
Right, exactly. So like, but especially in the retreats, right? People will come up and say like all these bad things that happen to them, right?
Yeah.
Um, I feel like bad. Okay, but sorry, but like just like these things that happen to them, right? Like
Yeah.
terrible things, and
Yeah.
then like it was like a part of the healing process, right? It's like,
Yeah.
and then they opened up and we all prayed and we said we would never forget, right? And all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
next year came and you don't know their person's name, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and then like I also felt like people like in terms of relationships and in terms of that, like just using the big things as a crutch, right, for an actual relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like I feel like a relationship is built on consistency, right?
Mm-hmm.
So constant like building and then like repairing and then maintaining.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what was happening, right? So then people were just spilling out their deepest, darkest secrets, and then that helped them, but then like there was no relationship formed, right? Not really. So then that also like added to the cynicism I held, right, toward everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, just
What happened in your family when you stopped going to church?
I never stopped going to church.
Oh, you still go to church now?
I think I've missed. I think I can count on both hands, almost both hands, I believe, the amount of times I've missed church.
Really?
Yeah.
But this is what you think about the people that you're spending time at church with.
Right. So I was doubting them, but see, it's the contradiction in my head, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't want to believe it, right? But here I am, like believing or searching for the truth, right? And the truth
Uh-huh.
that I arrived at was nihilism, right?
Yeah.
So then here I was struggling, like not to end my life every day, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like I go to church and it's like, the same love and affection and all that's there, right? The same camaraderie,
Yeah.
same fellowship.
Yeah.
Like my pastor, the EM pastor, yeah, they like everybody there saw what I was going through. I'm fairly certain, and I guess despite everything, I longed for human connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's ultimately what led me there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then and then like a switch happened, obviously, right? At least I hope I'm not the same bitter fool that I was a couple like 3 years ago.
Okay.
Wow,
So what
that's a
was the
lot shorter
switch?
time.
What was the switch?
Um, it's so funny. Um, at one of those said retreats I was talking about, right?
Yeah,
I basically during like a group like church sharing session at the very end of the retreat when the churches come together and
yeah,
separate
yeah,
from like the groups that you've like been randomized into.
yeah,
I basically told my group how I was feeling about those things.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, and they in like this outburst, like I couldn't take it anymore.
yeah.
And then after that, I don't know, it like the depression, like the self, like the suicidal thoughts. It's like
Yeah.
they went away, just gone.
Wow.
Interesting. And this is
Yes.
the last night of the retreat, right? It's the most emotional, right, and all that. And I didn't, because it wasn't like a sudden change, right? It was more like, oh, what was there is suddenly not there.
Yeah.
It wasn't this. There was no gradient, right? So after that, I'm like, huh. Well, what about that?
Well, how about that?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So then
You're known.
here I am.
You
Hmm.
open yourself, you express yourself. Now you present yourself to the group.
Right.
You're not rejected. Nobody said, "Oh,
Right.
you feel that way about us? Get out." Nobody said that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're known. I mean,
Just
what we
is.
all
Yeah.
long to know and be known, and you were
Right.
known at that point and accepted, even with
Right.
all of this stuff that had
Right.
been churning in you.
Yeah. So it just really, I think it emphasized like the family, like the way I saw like my church as my family, right?
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
grew up with them since I was like 5, 6, and they treated
Right.
me like the people treated me like a younger brother, basically.
Right.
So it's like all that is like reinforced. But I feel like um a, it would be a deception to say that like my chase for understanding Christianity started from there. It'd be a nice narrative, right? But that's not where it starts.
That's okay.
Because sorry, it's just like because that's what I was like. Should I say it like that? Like it sounds nice,
Right.
doesn't it?
Right.
It's
No,
very
but you're not a
convenient.
but you want to be honest. You're like Jordan Peterson. You want to tell the truth. So
Yeah.
it's good.
So so that I grew up thinking like, oh, this Christianity is for idiots, right? Like who could believe like the default, right?
Right.
Um, and then like I thought to myself, how do I know that, right? Because I came across it's called Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality by Udowski. I forget his first initials, but
Huh.
I read through all of that, right? And I feel like that I learned a lot from it. Um, so I think that was really my initial like foray into like me looking for the truth, like how to find truth, right? So then like I asked myself, how do I know what I know, right? That's like a fundamental question I have to keep asking myself. And then I pointed it at Christianity, right? This thing I've been in for so long, right? Or in, but I've been
You've been in it, but maybe not embracing it, but
right,
you've
not a
been in
part
it.
of it, right?
Right. Right.
So it's like, how do I know what I know? How do I know that how do I know that Christianity is for fools? And I looked into it. I'm like, oh, I was fed this idea, right? Like I did not like. This is not an idea that I've come to. It's not a conclusion that I've made. I just took it from somewhere else because it
Right.
was easy
You
and it
inherited
fit
it.
right and it fit my world views, right?
Yeah, because you
Which was like
inherited that too.
everybody. I was thinking like everybody's stupid. I'm better than everybody else. So then right, I'm like, okay, fine, let's see it. I got this. I've
Yeah.
been here since I was 5. I know all the ins and outs of the Bible, right? Look at me. I'm I know everything, right? Then I open up, right? And then this was a slow process too, because this was something I didn't really want to do, right? Because it's hard. It's difficult to to do stuff like this. But having people, specific people in the church, not even part of like my church, but like other churches, a pastor I really look up to. Um, I think he's studying at Trinity right now, but he was like a very big part of me just looking for answers, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Looking for the truth, right? Looking
Mm-hmm.
for why I believe in what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I just went to him with whatever questions I had, right? I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, let's go, let's do it, I'm ready.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that was my Fridays for a long time. It was just me going to his church
Mm-hmm.
because our church was too small, so we just joined with theirs.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, let's do it. And then I just basically every time, every Bible passage, I would just grill him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then from that, I guess I just picked up things, right? Because like this Christianity thing has something here, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like this Jesus fellow really, like I guess like what really got me was how accurate a picture of just like human nature the Bible seems to have. Um, like it was, maybe it's my own biases, right? But like I felt like the Bible really knew people, right? And it seemed like it really knew how to fix or how to make people better, right? It knew the right way. That was the first thing that really captured my attention about like all the stuff I was asking about.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, just as an aside, right? To this day, my favorite book of the Bible is Ecclesiastes.
Okay, yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
Right, and then like Revelations, and then the Gospel. That's
Okay.
like my current um, list, I suppose. But um, so then I was like, okay, interesting. How about that, right? Like Jesus wasn't full like of garbage, like it
Mm-hmm.
was, all these things are very, very useful and personal, even up to today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then from there, basically, I took the easy way out of just becoming almost like a Bible. Um, like I knew a lot of like tidbits and facts, right,
Mm-hmm.
about like specific passages or whatever we were covering, right? I
Mm-hmm.
never tried to like disprove or prove Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I took a soft way out, and I just, all I did was rack up Bible knowledge basically and like
Mm-hmm.
different interpretations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then like recently, due to these conversations, I've had to rethink everything from the
Mm-hmm.
bottom up.
Mm-hmm.
And now, looking on all of that past stuff and like, thinking it over, processing it, I've come to, so this is my current worldview now, right?
Okay.
Um, so I guess I'll start by defining what I believe a truth is.
Okay.
And then a truth to me is something that just is, right? So like truths build on each other, right? So like a piece of metal conducts electricity, that's a truth, right?
Yep.
If you ask why, well, it goes down to atoms and then eventually like quarks and such so forth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, when you ask why, it becomes a philosophical question rather than, like a natural world question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so then, like, that's like an example of what I believe truth is, right?
Okay.
So then I had to ask myself, um, or I didn't ask myself, but like nihilism is something that can be like reached as a worldview, right? And then it can be considered a truth. It's just something that is, right?
Yeah, it's an assertion, at least.
Right. So
Right.
then it's the fact that there is no meaning, right?
Right.
And then that obviously leads to the postmodern, like where we are right now, right? So then if there is no meaning, right? Like if me picking an apple and stabbing a man are equal in the sense that they have no meaning, right?
Right.
Um, then like what's like the only thing that really has meaning to me, because I am a thinking person, would like probably like to end it, right? So I don't have to think about there being no meaning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, if you were a true nihilist, right, and you were all in on this and you believed it completely and utterly, you would end up killing yourself, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Or at least that was the conclusion I went to,
Yep.
right? So obviously, the world is still here, humanity is still here, and we're in this postmodern era, right?
Yep.
So then that would mean, like, we can't live like that, right? As humans, we can't live without meaning.
Nope.
It's literally
Nope.
impossible.
Nope. Nope. We
Like,
kill ourselves.
right? It's like even the idea of like I like food, right, can be explained. Like, oh, you're hungry, but like you liking food, right, is like nothing, meaningless. So eating is meaningless. Everything is meaningless.
Yep.
So it's ultimately like a useless worldview, right? You can't
Yep.
live like that.
Yep.
So then obviously that leads to nowadays postmodernism, and so then okay, nothing has meaning. So that means that whatever I believe, I can assign meaning to things, right?
Right.
So then that's what today is, right? Like whatever I feel is correct, right? That's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And then that works until you meet another human being, right? And then that whole model just falls to its knees because, right, like under this new postmodern idea, it's like you can assign value to things, right? But then you can't, like if I see somebody stabbing another person in the middle of the street, I have no reason to go help them, right? I can't say, oh, I think it's wrong, or I think it's right. Like I can't say that and then try to stop him. Like what right do I have if everything means nothing and we assign our own meaning, right?
Right. Right.
So like it's, yeah, I mean, I don't want that, right? Because like I don't want people to kill people. I don't want to be stabbed in the street one day, right? Like postmodernism doesn't work, right? It's at least at like a theoretical level, because it's literally a contradiction within itself. How can you have meaning if there is no meaning, right? Like, so then that, and I can't live like that, right? Obviously, like I'm kind of into truth, yeah. So like I can't live with that lie. So then what's left, right? It's having a truth, a defined truth. And I went to Christianity. I mean, it was the closest one nearby, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the more, so then where to, like Christianity, like I picked Christianity eventually. I settled on it because I felt that out of all of the other religions, this one was different, right?
Mm-hmm.
It had something.
Mm-hmm.
On like practical levels, right? It doesn't ignore the earth, right? And it doesn't ignore other people. In fact, the central tenet I feel is, well, hell, Jesus says, right? Love your God and then love your neighbor
Mm-hmm.
as much as you would love yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the two most commandments that are worth
Mm-hmm.
the most in Jesus's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one, right? So then like it 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 answers in that aspect both here and then whatever else is there, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and then um like it's like the most logical one that you could get to, right? Because like pantheistic stuff will obviously lead to like, oh, okay, what's above them then, right? It's like, oh, you're pantheon, but like, and then it doesn't answer the question of morality either, right? And then obviously, right, the cherry on the top for me was, here was this God that came down as a human and then died for us little cockroaches on the ground, right? Here was the paradox, right? What was happening there? That's the whole thing to cover right there, right? And no other religion offers that, right? It doesn't, like the greatest comes down to become the least,
Right.
and therefore the least becomes the great. You know, like
Right.
that's such a novel idea, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It is.
So yeah, so personally where I am now, right, is I'm really banking right now on that verse, and I believe Mark, where knock and he will answer, ask and you will receive, and then like what is it, like what father would give his son a snake, right? So I don't know if I can say that 100% that I believe in a God that is up there, right, watching me. But I'm here, I'm willing, right? I'm willing to learn more. And then like me looking for conversations with other people is, right, it's a show of good faith, say, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That I'm trying to find an answer.
And you're still going to church.
Yeah, I mean, I got an adult Bible study tomorrow, so
Well, good for you.
gotta go to that. Yeah.
So So where's the rest of your life going? Are you in school? Are you done with school?
Um, I'm taking a gap year right now, so I'm
Okay.
working 2 jobs, just trying to get some money.
Gap year between.
Oh, sorry, I'm 19 right now,
Okay.
so
Okay. So between
um,
high school and college.
between I did my freshman year,
Okay.
so yeah, so
What kind of
from
school?
community college,
Okay.
so
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. So
I didn't do
local.
too well in school, if yeah, so I'm just here to do my stuff before I can transfer.
So how has, I mean, you walked through kind of the thinking of, you walked through the thinking of your journey. How has this changed how you feel? I mean, you mentioned you had a depressive period, you had an angry
Mm.
period. Those things still linger, or how's that going?
In terms of depression, I haven't felt anything like what it was like then.
Okay.
Um, so there's that, at least, right?
Yeah.
It was fairly bad, to put it like that. But I feel like more than anything, Christianity was a mirror to myself. It was like quick mirror, right? Like I was trying to learn myself. Christianity showed me my flaws, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
Well,
I
and
mhm.
your continued, I mean, it's really important that, you continued your searching within the church. And when I say the church, I don't just mean the just the one church, but the retreat, the
Mhm.
pastor, the community of the church.
Yeah.
You did your searching within that community, and that community, was able to hear your doubts and your challenges and your disagreements, and still continued to be able to embrace you and say, you're one of us, you're part of
Right.
us.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's really important.
Yeah, I would feel like the church that I'm at right now is very special, and
Mm,
like it doesn't fall to the usual trappings of a Korean church,
hmm.
but it doesn't disrespect those traditions either.
Okay.
Um, it's it's just, yeah, I mean, just because the pastor is like the cornerstone of it, he's such a great guy, and
Okay. Is
I
it a church made up of people who were born in the US rather than born in Korea?
yeah, yeah, pretty much. It's and
Okay.
most of the people have grown up in the church too. We've
Okay.
been getting a lot of new people recently, but
Okay.
yeah, so there's that.
Well, that's helpful because I know I mean, as you said yourself, the transition from the immigrants to the American born is a huge one. The gulf between them culturally, their expectations, their
All right.
worldview is so large that
Yeah, yeah.
many, obviously people want to see their children follow in their faith, but
All right.
many of those old traditional churches fret a lot because the drop off of the children of their churches was tremendous.
Right.
So I'm glad that you found a church that's really helping and able
I
to be
got
around
lucky,
you.
right?
That's really good.
I was there since I was a kid.
Yeah. No, that's really good. That's really good. Do you live with your parents?
Yeah, I live with my mom.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, my dad passed
Oh,
when I
I'm
was like a
sorry.
kid.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I didn't really know him, right? So like
Oh,
I
but
can't.
that's a big deal too. I mean, not knowing the absence is, I mean,
Um,
we talked about, I mean, anger is a funny thing. We don't
yeah,
often know why we're angry. And when we're angry, we have two eyes in front of our head and we find things to be angry about,
right,
but it's
exactly.
not
Yeah,
necessarily the source of the anger. And
right. It's
when you know people who are angry, well, they'll tell you all the reasons that they're angry, but in some ways that's the elephant on top of the rider. It's an angry
yeah.
elephant, and the rider's making up stories for to justify
Uh-huh.
the elephant's anger. But the elephant's just angry, and maybe angry for things that the elephant isn't, that the rider is by no means conscious of. So
Hmm.
it's a tricky thing, and losing your father, and but your story is a real your story is a real testimony both to the church and to the intense stubbornness of Korean culture.
Huh.
Because it
Wow.
is. One of the, so like I said, I've watched there was a Korean drama that was on Netflix that probably still is, called Mr. Sunshine, which gave some of the history of Korea around the turn of the 21st century.
Hmm.
And I've been interested in some Asian history, early 20th century Asian history. And Korea, for many places, I think part of the reason so many Koreans join the Christian Reformed Church is the Netherlands is this little rump of land surrounded by England, France, and Germany.
Mm.
And so, and the sea. And the only way it lives is by robbing the sea of land.
Right.
And if there's anything that's persistent, it's the ocean. The ocean never sleeps, it never relents. And
Yeah.
so the Dutch, in their stubbornness, sort of made a life there. And in many ways, Korea, you've got China right above you.
Right.
You've got Japan over there. I mean, people who survived by enduring suffering and intense, being
Yeah.
being intensely tribal. And so,
Right. That's a. It helped then, but not so much
well, yeah, well,
now.
so often our strengths and our weaknesses are just two sides of
Right.
the same
Right.
coin. You survive because you're intensely tribal and stubborn, but then when
But
you have to get along with each other, you're intensely
right.
tribal and
Intensely
stubborn.
xenophobic. Right. Yeah.
But I really like your story, and in how, in the fact that you were young, so you probably didn't have much of a choice, but you had the courage to tell the group at the retreat just the truth about you, and they had the strength to hear it and not be shaken, and to not kick you out, but I mean, that's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
It is. It is. It's a beautiful story. I've heard a
um.
lot worse.
Yeah. I mean, when you say it, I guess it comes differently, right? Because yeah, I'm hearing it out loud, I guess.
Early in the conversation, you talked about, the culture and a mirror to see ourselves. Human
Right.
beings have a terrible time seeing ourselves because our eyes are in the front and they're looking out. And so we do sort of need mirrors
Uh-huh.
to see ourselves.
All right.
And we can't look at ourselves without distortions within ourselves.
Right. We are the
And
lens through which we see the world,
right.
including
So
ourselves.
no, I really like your story. And it's, I appreciate your honesty and the your 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 Korean nature at which you've pursued your story. Intense
Uh,
and self-reliant, but yet at the same time very much part of your tradition, even though, as you articulated very well, I mean, the transition from, if I recall the story correctly, and I may not, but the versions I've heard of it, of the Korean revival, started with a Korean pastor basically confessing his sins and his shortcomings publicly. And in a shame and honor culture, that
wow. Huh.
that so broke the
All right.
script that breaking just reverberated. And
Mm.
and in that, I mean, the gospel then just spread because it gave people the license to be honest.
All
and
right.
and and so, yeah, the growth of the church in Korea has been nothing short of miraculous in the 20th century. And even though culturally you're Korean American and there's a lot of American in you don't fit in that group of people that were born and raised in Korea. You're very different. You're expressive, you're an
Mm.
individual, you've got all these aspects to you because you've got this American culture, but there's still Korean in you. And so you're working through that dynamic. And then Christianity becomes kind of the anvil upon which you hammer this out. So, no,
Yeah.
it's good. It's good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just happy that I guess I was born like Christianity was just there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and right now it's just me trying to find God, right? I guess
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
it's a kind of a scary idea.
yeah. Well, I'll tell you, he's all around you, in your church
Yeah,
and in your community,
yeah,
and through your story.
right,
There's, it's part of the Reformed faith that, we go looking for God only to discover he was hunting us.
right. It's like that's like an issue I have right now, right? Like
Yeah,
what, like how fruitful is this chasing, right? Like how
yeah,
that's not like I'm almost trying to like force out God out of the underbrush, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
trying to scare him out, right? But
yeah, yeah.
that's why I'm banking, right? I'm banking
God,
on the
God does not scare easy, my friend.
that's right. It's like this fine line between testing and chasing, right? That I'm kind of
Yes.
doing. So that's why I'm banking on ask and you shall receive, right?
Yeah. Well,
That's what I'm hoping will will
well,
be.
take Jesus at his word.
All
I mean,
right.
and what's remarkable in the Gospels often, it's a story that people don't like for a variety of reasons. But the Syrophoenician woman, Jesus, I just preached on this recently. Jesus, the mob is just driving him crazy. They all want miracles and everything. So he gets
All
he
right.
gets up to Tyre, and he's just, you don't have hotels, so you're staying in a house. And
Mm-hmm.
and as a woman finds him, and, oh, you're the miracle worker. I have a daughter with a spirit. Can you let her go? And Jesus is
All
like,
right.
oh, and kind of puts her off in not a terribly gentle way. And the woman
Yeah.
is dogged. And she basically says, no, I'm not letting you go. And she tells a story at which she places herself at his mercy,
Mm-hmm.
but very much at his feet. And he can't deny her, and he gives her exactly what she asked for. So,
Oh,
and so these dynamics are there,
mm-hmm.
and they're in your story, and I think that's really cool. I'm
Yeah.
really glad you found my channel and found the link, to the lottery
Right.
of getting a slot.
When I saw all the conversations, like, oh my goodness, this is it. This is what I've been looking for, right?
Well,
I know.
here's the question for you. What would you like to do with this? I can, you said you wanted to share it with some people. Do you want me to post it? Do you want me to just share it with you and you can share it with others? What would you like to do?
I suppose you can post it.
Okay.
Actually, yeah. Yeah. The truth. I mean, it is what it is, right? So I'd
It's
be
up to
fine.
you.
I'd be fine with you
I don't
posting it.
I don't want you to do it if you don't want to do it.
I mean, I just feel like every reason I have against doing it is dumb.
I don't
So,
think you said anything bad about anybody in this video, and I think you were very honest about yourself. And I
yeah.
actually think that others, in hearing it, will hear some of their own stories. I mean, that's part of the reason I like posting these conversations, because
Hmm.
we find connections with each other. Have you been to the Discord server at all?
I have, but
Okay.
I don't even know where to start
No,
with
I
it.
understand
So,
that. I totally understand that.
yeah.
It goes
Like this is
fast.
what I'm really looking for,
Oh, good.
and like one-to-one conversations, and I
Yeah,
feel like this is where the church even is most effective, right? Like
yeah,
Willow Creek, right? Like
yeah.
okay, sure, it does what it does, but at the end of the day, right? Like Christianity shines at its most between two people, I feel.
That is very often true. Well, thank you much. Well, I actually don't have a video to post tomorrow, so I will post this tomorrow morning.
Oh, great. I get to watch that. That's good.
And many people have shared their conversations. They People, for the most part, the comment section is supportive and helpful. So I think people will enjoy this
Oh,
conversation, and I think people will enjoy your story.
okay. Well, thank you so much for having this conversation with me.
Oh, well, thank you for reaching out,
Hmm.
and God bless you as you continue to try to, you know, chase God out of the bushes.
uh,
Good luck with that.
at least I got time, right? If anything else.
That's right. That's right.
Uh,
Well, you
well,
have a good evening.
yeah. Good night.
Bye-bye.